On today's show, we're discussing if Anthony Santander, aka Tony Taters, would be a ample but albeit expensive way to replenish the Diamondbacks offense in 2025. All this in 30 seconds. Don't you guys go anywhere. And welcome into another edition of the PHNX Dbacks podcast right here on PHNX. My name is Derek Montilla, occasionally known as your mayor of PHNX. This guy is occasionally known as your vice mayor. It's the one and only Thunderstick, Jesse Friedman. So great to see you guys here today. It was so great to see so many of you guys last night. We had our first ever episode of PHNX Live. It's not an episode. No one recorded it. Well, one guy recorded it the whole time, and I hope that footage finds its way onto the internet at some point. But PHNX Live was a blast. It was great to see you guys out there. Had so much fun with our Q&A with Archie Bradley. Archie, of course, was Archie, man. I mean, that guy never ceases to amaze me, and he is an open book. He was last night, that's for sure.
He was a little bit too much of an open book at one point. There was one particular detail that Archie shared about himself.
I don't want to talk about
that. It was a little bit disheartening for some people in the audience.
I may or may not have had to leave the stage area at one point, but he might have told on himself. And the question, he didn't even get asked the question, yet he still gave an answer that none of us as Diamondbacks fans wanted to hear. And I can't reveal any of that because if you weren't there, you missed out. So make sure to not miss out the next time we do our PHNX Live event. Again, it was an absolute blast. I think we have a picture from last night of us hanging out and doing our thing. But it was a great time. Jesse, shout out to the fine folks at Gila River Resorts and Casinos for having us out there. They had our own menu. We deserved our own menu, Jesse, with Grand Slam nachos and sliders and stuff on it. It was pretty good.
It was pretty great. I had a great time. You and I basically just got to sit on stage and do pretty much nothing because
Correct.
Archie was up there answering all the questions. Yeah. And frankly, people were there more so to see him than to see us. So,
yeah, that's fair.
I felt like I knew my place, and it was a great time.
You and I, along with Damon Dog, got to enjoy ourselves a little cheeseburger afterwards, and then Damon and I went and enjoyed the fine table games there at Gila River Resorts and Casinos.
Yeah.
And I'm proud to say after gambling at roulette for an hour, I walked away only down $20.
Very nice.
Really
Very
feels
nice.
like a win.
Yeah, that's a huge win.
When it comes to me in general. But again, thank you guys that were out there for stopping by, and I hope to see more of you guys out there at the next one. Ryan Pederson. There's Pederson? I'm going to go. Yeah, you're right. It's Pederson. Great seeing you last night, Ryan. It was awesome to see you. No, Gabriel was out there. Gabriel's keeping a tight lip, but he also knows the moment we're talking about with Archie out there for sure. If you were there, you definitely know it. But again, thank you guys for stopping by. We know that there has continued to be speculation about the Arizona Diamondbacks in regards to what they're going to do this offseason, though there's no moves being made yet. This is another Throwback Thursday edition of the show, and we are going to talk about this being a very historic week for this franchise. I guess you could say, looking back, and we'll get to some of those moments that have happened during this week here in today's episode. But calls are picking up on the Diamondbacks starting pitchers, according to a report from Nick Picoro, Jesse.
They are, yeah. And we suspected on this show that given some of the contracts that have been given out to free agent starters in recent days, right? There was a 2-year, $29 million deal for Matthew Boyd. There was 2 years, $34 million for Frankie Montas. Both of those deals certainly coming in above expectations. And it was hard to know exactly what to make of those deals because, as we talked about, I think both of those guys are in pretty different situations than the year that Jordan Montgomery just had. But at the same time, it certainly wasn't bad news for the Diamondbacks that those guys signed at the dollar values that they did.
Correct.
And we got similarly good news along the same lines today as Luis Severino signed a 3-year, $67 million with the A's.
The Sacramento A's.
The Sacramento A's,
Get
which
it
is
right.
what we will refer to them as, even though officially they're just the A's, apparently. But yeah, all of these deals for free agent starters have come in above expectations, and it feels like as this market continues to unfold, there could be a world where Jordan Montgomery is actually worth pretty close to what he is going to be paid in 2025.
Right.
So maybe the Diamondbacks are able to move him and not actually have to eat all that much money at all.
Let's first start off with the fact that Jesse has said on this program many times that today's money is not tomorrow's money. And I know that this is just a very short, small example of that. But Jordan Montgomery's contract just one season ago looked atrocious. And now when you are looking at what other guys that you could consider to be a little bit above average starting pitchers are signing at, it's not looking like Jordan Montgomery's, 1 year that he is owed by the Diamondbacks is as big as of an albatross as we once thought it to be. So now the idea here is that the Diamondbacks might be able to actually get something for him, or according to a report from Ken Rosenthal, maybe they don't trade him at all, which finally, Jesse, I get my redemption because I can stop sounding like a crazy person when I have said over and over again that if he's going to rebound as a starting pitcher and be what he was at one point, why not do that here with the Arizona Diamondbacks? I guess the only reason not to is because the Diamondbacks do have a surplus of starting pitchers, and considering what's going on right now with this market, it's hard for Mike Hazen to not consider moving one of those guys, but it might not be Jordan Montgomery.
Yeah, this is a report that came out from Ken Rosenthal today on the topic of the Diamondbacks moving Jordan Montgomery. Rosenthal said that club officials, talking about the Diamondbacks club officials, are somewhat mixed on the idea, knowing Montgomery is a strong candidate to bounce back next season. And yeah, if you are the Diamondbacks and you believe that Jordan Montgomery is going to bounce back next season, why wouldn't you want it to happen for your own team, right?
Right.
Because if he does bounce back, he probably is going to be worth $22.5 million, right? And maybe more than that. And at that point, it's like, why are you eating any money at all in order to get off this contract if you really believe that this guy is going to bounce back? So yeah, we can definitely understand where the Diamondbacks are coming from on that front. It still sounds like out of their 6 starters that they currently have lined up right now, Jordan Montgomery, in my mind, is by far the most likely to be traded just because of his contract situation and the fact that the Diamondbacks very much could use that money to address other needs on this roster. But it does sound like there is a chance that the Diamondbacks could be open to moving just about anyone. In a story from Nick Picoro yesterday, Mike Hazen said that he is open to moving any Diamondback starting pitcher if an aggressive offer presents itself. Does that mean Zack Gallen is included? Does that mean Merrill Kelly is included? It seems like a long shot that either of those guys would be dealt, but based on what Hazen said, I don't think that's totally out of the question.
How aggressive of an offer are you making, and how much better can the Diamondbacks get in the future by making this move now? That's something that Mike Hazen has to weigh. And also the fact that next season is a season that this team appears that they're going to be all in. Hazen also said, according to Picoro's report, that he is open to a salary dump type trade or taking on another pricey contract, something we've discussed here in regards to the Diamondbacks moving Jordan Montgomery, that either of those things are not only a possibility, but likely in order to move Montgomery.
Right.
But Hazen went on to say that if the Dbacks do a salary dump, they would likely do it sooner than later. Haven't seen any moves being made. We know that Diamondbacks are, according to this report, receiving a lot of calls on their starting pitchers. But again, I think that when you combine Nick Picoro's report with what we're hearing today from Ken Rosenthal, you can see that the reason maybe that a move hasn't been made is that indecision, is the club officials having mixed feelings about Montgomery. And again, I think the worst outcome is that they trade him or move him, and then he goes back to being himself, right? He goes back to putting up the numbers that he did in 2022, 2023. If that should happen, then this is ultimately an awful move that the Diamondbacks will always look back on and say, almost unjustly, why did we get the worst out of Jordan Montgomery of his entire career? Why was that one season that we signed him for just the absolute the ass season of his career? It doesn't seem right. So I think at this point, again, and something we've talked about with this deal, if Montgomery can bounce back next year and if he can do it for the Diamondbacks, then overall, this deal that they signed him to for 2 years doesn't look as bad. They can walk away if they're like, well, hey, at least we got one season of a sub 3.5 ERA Jordan Montgomery. We'll take that. And that'll help us forget about what last season looked like. And I mean, he can still help this team win. I think that if that's the case, then you look back on this deal, Jordan Montgomery can go maybe sign elsewhere after the end of the season. Like you said yesterday, maybe the Diamondbacks, maybe he's so good that Diamondbacks give him a qualifying offer and he turns it down and they get a draft pick out of it. Like
that's true.
There's a lot of possibilities here that are still very positive for Jordan Montgomery to stay with this team for 2025.
I think I agree with Ryan, what Ryan said in the chat about the worst outcome being if the Diamondbacks hold on to Montgomery and you get kind of a similar season, right?
I guess.
If you move him this offseason and you save some money and you spend that money well on other needs on your roster, even if Montgomery goes out and is really good for another team, you still could be okay with that, right? It's like, okay, we didn't get the best version of Montgomery, but we still were able to satisfy some other needs on our roster with that money. If Montgomery, if you bet on him bouncing back next season and he's not able to do that, then you've just made the whole situation worse, right? You've gone from one season of a somewhat disastrous version of Jordan Montgomery to 2 seasons of that. Where you're paying him the kind of money that guys at the top of the market seem to be getting. So I do think another interesting thing that stands out to me in Nick's story from yesterday is that if the Diamondbacks are moving Montgomery, especially in a salary dump situation, you probably want that move to happen pretty quickly because that is going to dictate how much money you have to spend on some of these other guys. And presumably next week, as the winter meetings get underway, we're going to have probably some action in the free agent market. And you'd hate for the Diamondbacks to be hamstrung by the fact that they don't have a good sense of how much money they have to spend because they haven't been able to actually make that move with Montgomery yet.
Well, a couple of other guys we've talked about and potential replacements for Christian Walker were also included in Ken Rosenthal's article. He said that Cleveland is open to trade offers for Josh Naylor and Lane Thomas. Josh Naylor being someone that we talked about being a potential replacement there at first base.
Yeah.
Teams are also talking to the St. Louis Cardinals, are under the impression that the team will not trade Ryan Helsley, which is a guy that we thought could solve a lot of the Diamondbacks' issues as well.
That one doesn't really make any sense to me. Like if you're the Cardinals, I mean, Helsley has 1 year to free agency. It doesn't really sound like the Cardinals are all that serious about trying to contend next year.
Sure.
I mean, like staying in the mix, but they're clearly not pushing all of the chips in on 2025. They're trying to get younger. It sounds like they might move a Nolan Arenado. Obviously, Goldschmidt is expected to depart in free agency. So
couldn't you potentially get similar, if not the exact same value out of him at the trade deadline versus doing it at the beginning of the season?
That's a fair counterpoint. I do think that at the trade deadline, it feels like if you hold the most highly sought after reliever on the market, which there's a decent chance Ryan Helsley would be that guy.
Right.
You can almost ask for whatever you want. We saw the Marlins get a pretty healthy return for Tanner Scott at the trade deadline this year. But still, I think that you could ask more for Ryan Helsley now because not only is it a full year of control versus 2 months of control, but going back to what you were saying with Jordan Montgomery and a potential qualifying offer there, if you get Ryan Helsley now, then he also could net you a draft pick next winter if you give him a qualifying offer and he declines it. That would not be on the table if you were traded at the deadline because if you're moved at any point during the season, you're not eligible to receive a qualifying offer. So to me, that rumor about the Cardinals feels a lot like a rumor about the Brewers, which I believe circulated about a year ago, where they were saying that they were going to hold on to Corbin Burns. And we all saw what happened there. So I still sort of expect that the Cardinals will move Ryan Helsley before the end of the offseason, but who knows? Maybe they don't get the price they're looking for, and they really do bet on trying to get as much as they can at the trade deadline.
Well, speaking of the Brewers, another option we talked about for the Diamondbacks was Devin Williams, and it seems more likely that the Brewers will trade Devin Williams, according to this Ken Rosenthal article. Ideally, they want a young starting pitcher in return, which is something the Diamondbacks can very much offer them.
It is. Yeah. I mean, it all depends on which young starting pitcher we're talking about.
Can I
guess,
offer
right?
you one slightly used Jordan Montgomery? No, but like
I'm not sure Jordan Montgomery qualifies as young at this stage in his career.
Like a Gilbert Diaz potentially.
Right. I think it's do the Brewers want Gilbert Diaz? Do they want?
Obviously, that's not enough value. They probably need to be more than that for Devin Williams, right? Or what do you think?
I mean, it's just 1 year of a reliever we're
That's
talking
fair.
about, right? Like if you're the Diamondbacks, I don't think you want to be giving up a ton more than 6 years of control of a young starting pitcher. But yeah, it all depends on how the Brewers are evaluating these guys. The Diamondbacks do have kind of a lot of them. Christian Mena, Slade Ciccone, Dre Jameson, I guess it sounds like the Diamondbacks are more viewing him as a reliever right now, but maybe someone that another team would be interested in. Maybe there's one of these guys that the Brewers really believe in and would be interested in having in this kind of a move. But yeah, even if it is just Gilbert Diaz, I don't know if that's an easy move for the Diamondbacks to make if they really believe that he can be part of this rotation for a long time.
AV14 says, is Ken Kendrick going to spend any money this offseason? We've heard no Diamondbacks rumors besides they want Jock Pederson back. Well, you have not been watching the show then, because we've been trying to make our own rumors. We've been talking about every rumor. It's the offseason. We're a week away from the winter meetings, or less than that. A few days now at this point. So I do believe, based on what we've heard, that the Diamondbacks are going to spend money. They don't really have a choice. I mean, they could do it via trades, but they're not going to be able to fill their positional needs with the guys that are necessarily leaving. If you want to just account for all the free agents going elsewhere, the Diamondbacks will need to spend money, most likely. I mean, they could potentially find bad options within the organization to fill those roles. I don't know if that's necessarily the case for the bullpen. I think I have this weird belief that the bullpen would be just fine if they really didn't add this huge name or go out and grab a closer. I think that there are players in this organization that they could, that could fill that role and that could be good at it. I still believe in AJ Puck. I very much believe in Justin Martinez. But I do think that there is a desire to make this team better, specifically the bullpen. And I do think they're going to go out and try to acquire, a closer. But overall, the point being that this is a team that is going to have to spend money this offseason.
Yeah, and they have money to spend, right? Like they're sitting somewhere between 140 and 150 in payroll right now. And from the reporting we've gotten, it sounds like they're expecting to run a payroll somewhere in the same range as they had in 2024, which is around 175 million. Right. So depending on exactly how you want to work the math, I think they have about $25 million to spend as of right now. And if they traded Jordan Montgomery, as we've been discussing, that number could push up to 35 million, maybe even close to 40 million. And who knows, maybe Ken Kendrick, as we've seen at times in the past, when he feels that his team has a chance to contend, he's sometimes willing to push the envelope a little bit farther than where he originally decided. So I think this team is definitely going to spend some money. Are they in on Juan Soto? Probably not.
Yes.
I don't expect them to play in that part of the market.
He's not in those meetings. He has no way of telling you that. Maybe they are. Who knows? Again, we're creating our own rumors on this show, but we do have a good way for the Arizona Diamondbacks to spend some money, and that is on the aforementioned Anthony Santander, which we will be talking about on the other side of this break. So don't you guys go anywhere. We'll be right back. Whatever the moment, it is never ordinary over at Bet365, and that is definitely the case during the NFL football season. So make sure you check out Bet365. And again, you are a winner with the early payout offer if your team goes up by 17 points with an instant payout on straight bets and parlay selections. They will all be marked as winners. So get down on Bet365. They do offer the widest range of games and markets available for live in-game betting across 78 sports. And right now you can download the Bet365 app, use our code of PHNX365 when you sign up and place a bet of $5 or more. You will receive $150 in bonus bets. Find out whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or over and physically located in Arizona. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, text NEXT STEP to 53342, or visit problemgambling.az.gov. Well, we are very, very proud to have Sanderson Ford as our official vehicle partner. And like I said, if this holiday season you want to be the biggest baller on your block, you can go out and get your significant other a brand new vehicle from Sanderson Ford. I don't know where you get those big bows that you put on the hood. I hope Sanderson Ford might be able to help you out with that. They are very highly ranked in customer satisfaction, so I'm sure they know where to get the big bows for the hood of your car. But
I feel like Jesse would know that.
Jesse is probably Jesse would agonize over the size of the bows and what width to get the bows and what proper style to do. Like, does it go with the car? Don't listen to him. Listen to the fine folks at Sanderson Ford. They have you covered because they're also America's most awarded Ford dealership for customer satisfaction. And of course, they'll help you out with that brand new vehicle if you're in the market for such. Get that new 2024 F-150 truck with a 3.9% APR financing for 66 months, plus up to $4,000 cash back. Similar savings on over 900 new and pre-owned vehicles on the lot, plus get an additional $1,000 Amazon gift card on Broncos, Mach-E, Lightning, F-150, and Expedition on right now. So go out there, get yourself a new vehicle. And the Diamondbacks might need to go out there and get themselves a new vehicle, a new offensive vehicle to replace some of this offense they're losing potentially to free agency. And a great way to do so would be with, I guess you could say, Baltimore Orioles great Anthony Santander, Jesse. This guy had himself a pretty decent season for the Orioles.
Let's be a little more local here. Shane's fantasy legend.
Yeah, Shane's fantasy MVP.
Fantasy championship team legend. Anthony Santander.
Oh wow.
Yep.
So we talk about fantasy championships on this show. I didn't think we did that on this show, but in case
only pertaining to the sport you're talking about.
Oh, okay, all right. Because I was going to talk about my championship in our PHNX fantasy football league from last year, but I don't really do that often because I'm kind of humble. I may or may not be on Waffle House watch right now.
It's okay, Derek. So am I.
Yeah, so is Shane. But
it's a big week for you guys.
It's a huge week for us, and I mean we really need to unite here as an office and make sure that Saul ends up in the Waffle House once again. That's what we really need.
I think that's the best case.
That's the best case.
I will say this, and I know that we're just getting completely off topic here, but I'm just going to derail. I will say this. I think that the best case is probably Saul to go back to back, but the second to best case would be keeping the trend continuing and the champion from last year going to Waffle House the following year. What nobody wants to see is me there because one, there's not really nobody really wants to see that, and two, I feel like I'd have too much fun. Like I would really enjoy it. You want to see misery at Waffle House. You don't want to see a guy who's just out there having a ball,
you think
having
what?
a blast.
You think I'm not going to have a fun time? I'm going to have the funnest damn time you've ever seen someone have at Waffle House. I will outfun you, Shane.
No, you won't.
Oh my God!
I'm going to bring like my keyboard and I'll play music for people.
Don't we all want to see that? I think we all want to see that.
I don't think anybody wants to see it.
That's really what we all want to see.
Anyway.
I'll tell you one thing we do want to see is Anthony Santander in a Diamondbacks uniform, mostly because that might be the only name that rivals Ryan Mountcastle for the coolest name we could add to this team.
That is a big selling point for sure, Derek. Another big selling point is that he hit 44 home runs in 2024. If we could look at Santander's stats for the 2024 season,
slugging percentage,
pretty good numbers here across the board. 235 average, 308 on base, 506 slugging percentage, 44 homers, as I said, 102 RBI, 3.3 Fangraphs wins above replacement.
4.
This was 4, yes. This was his walk year, and he showed up and was pretty darn good for the Baltimore Orioles and figures to get a pretty nice payday at some point this offseason. And I think the best case for the Diamondbacks here is that you are potentially losing Jock Pederson and Christian Walker, and that's about 50 home runs off of your major league roster, right? And some of the guys we've talked about to replace them, could approximate their production in some ways, but losing home runs, like there is a lot of value in the long ball. And Anthony Santander is a guy who could theoretically replace both of their home run production combined. At least that's basically what he did in 2024.
MLB.com released an article today that discussed the biggest questions for each team heading in to the winter meetings, and the biggest question for the Diamondbacks, according to Steve Gilbert, is what are they going to do to replace this offense that they're losing, right?
Right.
We've given you our suggestion, which is the best replacement for Christian Walker is Christian Walker. But Anthony Santander could be a very good replacement, like Jesse said, for both of these guys. And I mean, with the money that we discussed spending, it's not ideal for the Diamondbacks to go out and spend as much as it would take to get Santander. However, you know, it would be a move that I think would keep the Diamondbacks relevant in an NL West that is most likely going to continue to get more and more difficult. I have no idea what the Giants are doing, but I'm a little worried. Like they're you know, there's a lot of teams not making moves, but the Giants, like, they parted ways with a lot of guys. They have a lot of like space that's like that. I never trust what the Giants are going to do. And we already know how good the other teams in the NL West that aren't the Colorado Rockies are. So that's something that the Diamondbacks have to consider when they go out this, you know, in free agency this offseason. We've talked about a lot of low cost, low budget options. However, that's not necessarily what the Diamondbacks need to do in order to stay competitive in an NL West that's outrageously competitive. When you take a look and you compare Santander's last 3 seasons to Christian Walker's last 3 seasons, they're very comparable numbers there.
Yeah.
You have Santander slashing 244, 317, 478 with 105 home runs. Walker slash 250, 332, 481 with 95 home runs. Santander at a 125 OPS plus over those 3 seasons. Christian Walker at a 123 OPS plus. BWAR, Santander's 8.3 WAR and on Baseball Reference, and then 11.4 for Christian Walker. Obviously, Walker having more value there due to his defensive value.
Right. Yeah, Anthony Santander is not an outstanding defender, and he also doesn't play first base, or at least he hasn't played much first base.
One game.
He played one game at first base in 2024, and I believe he played a handful of games at first base last season with the Orioles. So he has some experience at the position, but not much. He was primarily a right fielder in 2024, played 130 games there, 25 at DH as well. So positionally, this doesn't feel like an ideal fit necessarily, right? You
probably DH a lot for them. Right
yeah,
now.
I think more than anything, you're looking at a DH. And as we discussed a little bit yesterday, if the Diamondbacks were to trade one of their left-handed hitting outfielders, then it would be nice to have someone else on the roster who could play that position if needed. And so Santander could be someone who could fill a corner outfield spot if needed. So it does sort of make sense from that standpoint. But ultimately, Derek, I think the biggest hindrance for the Diamondbacks in getting Santander is the cost. MLB Trade Rumors has him projected for 4 years and $80 million. And 100%, yeah, what Cam was saying earlier. Are you really going to pass on, you know, giving Christian Walker $3 and $55 so that you can sign Santander to a 4-year, $80 million deal? I don't think so.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say to that, though, is I think there are a lot of comparisons between Teoscar Hernandez from last offseason, who's a free agent, and Anthony Santander this offseason. Guys who have a reputation as being kind of lower on base percentage. Teoscar definitely strikes out more than Santander, but they have a similar profile, a lot of power, but not much OBP. And Teoscar's market did not really develop last offseason. He ultimately had to settle for a 1-year, $23 million deal with deferrals, of course, with the Los Angeles Dodgers, right? And so
Los Angeles deferrals.
For me, that might be, I don't want to say that's the only scenario that I could see the Diamondbacks getting involved here, but I think the price has to drop in some sense because, yeah, otherwise you're just giving this money to Christian Walker, someone who is a clearer positional fit than Anthony Santander.
I didn't know how we were going to get there today, but I figured it out. The Mariners are going to sign Anthony Santander.
There we go.
So if we want to talk about the Mariners for a little bit, we can.
Yeah, there it is. Of course we do.
Plesac actually predicted that he would go to the Mariners.
And then the Diamondbacks can trade for him.
Which I scoffed at because the Mariners spending $20 million AAV is ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
Elise makes some very good points. First, she wants to know if he has an noodle arm. She says, how is his throwing arm, though?
His arm strength is above average.
Yeah.
His arm value on Baseball Savant is showing up as -1.
Not great.
So I don't know if it's a huge asset necessarily, but in terms of his arm, just his arm strength, that appears to be higher than I guess Lourdes Gurriel is probably in that same range. So not an elite arm if that's what we're looking for.
She also says, I can already hear Bert emphasizing his last name even more dramatically than Contreras. I don't want to sign him for that reason alone. Yeah, every time it would be, here we go with Anthony Santander. Something like that. I don't know. I like that, actually. I thought that sounded good. But let's take a look at his Baseball Savant page so that way we can discuss some of these factors, in at least with his batting. Again, not terrible at all. Jesse's got some pretty good numbers here, but again, chase rate not great, and then his expected batting average shows that he got a little lucky, basically.
Yeah, it does. And that kind of goes back to what I said earlier of, is there a world where Santander's market doesn't develop the way that he wants it to, that the 4-year, $80 million deal or whatever he's looking for might be higher than that? Maybe he's looking for 5 and 100. Like, you could ask for that after hitting 44 home runs.
It's true.
Teams are going to look at the underlying data, and they're going to see a player who appears to have overperformed by quite a bit in 2024. And sometimes when that happens, it leads to guys taking shorter term deals at still relatively high dollar values and then trying to re-enter the market the following year. And I don't think it's likely, but I do think it is possible that a player of Santander's profile, that's how his free agency ends up. And if you're the Diamondbacks and you're not giving him $100 million, it just doesn't really make sense for this team in the long term. But would you give Santander, 1 year at a pretty high dollar value to just like rake in your DH slot, maybe play some corner outfield for you for one season? That's something I could see the Diamondbacks getting in on, in much the same way that they signed Jordan Montgomery to that sort of a deal entering 2024, right? That's something I could maybe see the Diamondbacks stretching the budget a little bit, like, oh, this guy's market is not what we thought it would be.
Yeah.
What if we just went in there and tried to make this splash that we weren't really expecting to make at the beginning of the offseason?
I'll tell you why they wouldn't say that, because that's the exact same thing they said to themselves about Jordan Montgomery last offseason. But, I mean, it's hard to resist when you're talking about the guy that was third in Major League Baseball in home runs last season behind Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge. You had Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, Santander, Juan Soto. That's a pretty elite group to be in as the essentially 40 and over club for home runs in Major League Baseball last year. Offense has been down, so it's not, it's just not as common to see a guy with this kind of power. I believe someone else brought it up in the chat. I'm not in love either with his on-base percentage or his batting average. However, we've seen that the Diamondbacks really, they need both, right? They need guys that can get on base right now, and they need power, and you're not necessarily going to get both of those things out of one guy. So I think that there is that addition, that's what he brings. And then, the Diamondbacks still have some more moves to make, in regards to who else they could bring in that could be those kind of on-base guys. But honestly,
he is a switch hitter too, which I feel like is makes him more valuable, right? He's not a guy who has big splits. His numbers against righties and lefties were very similar this past season. So
I will say, like, again, this might be overthinking this, but much like a closer, and the fact that a closer brings in kind of an idea here that like everybody knows their role. I think a true power guy like Santander allows the guys that get on in front of him to really take that role of more wanting to get on base, to do something, to just be there and be driven in by a power hitter. It's not to say they didn't have that same respect in Christian Walker. Just last year's lineup was more of like anybody doing it at any time. Like, there was a period of time where I would have wanted guys doing everything they can to get on base in front of Jock Pederson with how he was hitting, and Gino, right? So, but it's I guess an idea where maybe some of the guys can have a different mindset and maybe try not to go out there and hit 2 home runs in one at bat and try to do a little bit more about getting on base. I don't know, though. This team had the best offense in baseball last year. You might call it a fluke. You might be right, but I think they're still going to be pretty good. They just have to find a way. If they do lose Christian Walker and their 2 DH, their DH platoon, they're going to have to find a way to replicate that power.
Yeah. I mean, again, I don't view Santander as being super likely for the Diamondbacks.
No.
But you could see a world where this could make sense for them again if maybe
it's too late. Lando's already buying his jersey. We already got someone out there going to get a Tony Tater's jersey.
Yeah, you might slow down just a little bit on that. But yeah, Santander is a middle of the order bat, and this is a team that after theoretically losing Jock Pederson and Christian Walker, of course they could bring one or both of those guys back. That's still on the table, but if you are going to lose one or both of those guys, then you'd like to be able to replenish the middle of your lineup a little bit. And Santander, as a switch hitter, is someone who hit a lot of home runs in 2024 and is reasonably young. He's 30 years old, and he's been pretty consistent. Those numbers over the last 3 years that you mentioned earlier, like this is a guy who's been a well above average hitter every season for a good while now. And I don't think people have necessarily noticed that much. Like, I think he's kind of flown under the radar until this year, where when you hit 44 homers, you start to get some recognition. But maybe there's a world where this could make sense for the Diamondbacks.
It's almost like there's so many good players on that Orioles team that it's hard to like stand out.
Right. That
because
is also
everybody
true.
else, it felt like everybody else kind of got their shine, but
it's like everyone hits 30 homers.
Yeah,
like what's
no
so
big
special
deal.
about hitting 40? I mean,
we're all almost there anyway. Well, we got some more. It is Throwback Thursday, so we got some more stuff to talk about the Arizona Diamondbacks, and including, like I said earlier, how historic this week was for the franchise. We got some big signings and one trade that, again, is going to make me probably feel bad about things I said in the past about Paul Goldschmidt. Don't you guys go anywhere. We'll be right back after this break. I come on here and talk about how much fun you can have at Gila River Resorts and Casinos quite a bit, but from experience last night, let me tell you, we had an absolute blast, and not just with our PHNX Live Q&A with Archie Bradley, but once we ditched this guy, or actually, no, I take that back. Because of him, we lost. We were going to blame our losing on him, but we had a blast going out there and having some fun on the roulette tables. Gila River Resorts has one of the most incredible roulette tables I've ever seen in my entire life. Like it's just one of the most state-of-the-art roulette tables with lights and a projection on the table, and it like just this really cool feature where it shows you what won by lighting up the squares on the table of what won, whether it's red or black or odd or even. Great time.
Have we found out if it's from under the table or from above? Or
I think it's from above.
Is it magic?
I think it's magic. It's probably magic because there's a lot of magic to be had at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. But of course, you guys got to go out there and have a great time. So make sure to do so. Make sure to join us for our events. You do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Visit playathila.com for more details. And of course, if it's a trip out there, as far as my trip is to Gila River Resorts and Casinos, stop at Circle K on your way. Fill up. It is America's thirst stop. Get yourself some cheap gas. Get yourself some wonderful snacks. Again, the peanut butter pretzels are incredible. To get those anytime. Doesn't matter if you're on a road trip or not. But most importantly, join the Inner Circle for free right now by downloading the Circle K app. Terms and conditions do apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details. But when you do, you'll save 25 cents off per gallon on your first
snacks.
5 fill-ups. We got new snacks.
They're coming.
It's one of our. It's one of the best perks about working here. But
what did you request?
I really didn't request anything particular. I just wanted chocolate covered things. Chocolate covered almonds are on the way, and that's all
pretzels.
I need. Ooh, elite. Go get all these snacks. Stop by America's Thirst Stop. It's America's snack stop, and get yourself something to eat. Again, Throwback Thursday is here. We love Throwback Thursday because it gives us a chance to talk about something other than trade speculation. It's also Throwback Thursday because there's a familiar face right here in the studio. Get your tall, lanky butt over here right now. We got the one and only. I mean, he's the Lord. He's the father and overlord of television now, basically. But we got Faj in the house. Faj, what's been your favorite trade rumor so far that we've speculated on?
The most recent. Did you guys talk about the most recent stupid Red Sox one?
Oh yeah, we ripped that one apart.
Yes.
Zach Gallen and Ketel Marte, go jump in a river
For Marcelo Meyer?
Yeah, no,
thank you.
Hard pass.
I mean, there's no good Diamondbacks trade rumors out there right now. It's all like, oh yeah, the Diamondbacks are going to leverage everything they own for some crappy prospect.
Yeah.
What about the Mariners trade rumor for Nico Herner?
Would you tell Shane it's not a Mariners podcast? He doesn't seem to understand
Shane does love the Mariners.
Jesse, what do you think about that trade?
This is the Mariners getting Nico Hoerner for what?
I don't know.
Tell
Prospects.
Monte, obviously.
Prospects.
I mean, I like Nico Horner for the Mariners. Like they've needed a second baseman for a while, as you well know, Shane. But it does feel inevitable that the moment he puts on a Mariners uniform, he's just not going to be able to hit anymore.
No.
So
My favorite part about talking Mariners with Jesse is that he just completely goes in and is down. He's into it.
My favorite is when Shane produces a show and just starts cutting the camera so that he can talk to who he wants to talk to.
Yeah. He really abuses his power back there. See, there it goes again. We're just chopped liver over
I
here.
miss you all.
I miss you, Fudge.
Great work.
Wow. He's never told us that while he was actually working with us, so that's amazing to hear. But speaking of amazing things that happened, this week was the anniversary of the Arizona Diamondbacks signing one Zack Greinke in a move that shocked the baseball world when it happened. I know it shocked me. I didn't believe it was a real thing. We talked about that. But yeah, Jesse, Zack Greinke becoming an Arizona Diamondback. Where were you when that happened?
yeah, I was just gonna ask you the exact same question. Honestly, I don't know. I do not remember where I was, but I do remember seeing a tweet. I think it was Ken Rosenthal who broke the story, and being just utterly shocked. And I remember being utterly convinced that Zack Greinke, the addition of Zack Greinke, regardless of what else the Diamondbacks did that offseason, that I was going to see the Diamondbacks play in the postseason the following year.
Yes.
And of course, that's exactly what happened, Derek. The 2016 Diamondbacks were everything that we all hoped they would be. And no, they won, 68 games, 69 games the following year. Things did not at all go the way that I expected them to in 2016. But there was some redemption, of course, in 2017 when Zack Greinke was very, very good. I was also at Zack Greinke's first start as a member of the Arizona Diamondbacks. And were you at this game?
Yes.
Yeah, this was the game where Trevor Story hit multiple home runs. And my ears are still ringing with all of the hard contact against Zack Greinke in that first start. So it did not get off to it did not start anywhere near how you would have hoped.
No, I think I remember I was driving in my car and I remember hearing it on the radio, screaming a lot, and then calling every single person I knew related to covering the sport. Like I started calling Paul, who I used to work with, and I think I got down to just calling random friends at one point and asking them if they had heard the news. Like this was what, way back in 2015 when we still used phones for phone calls. I mean, it was a wild time a long time ago. But it was definitely earth-shattering news. I mean, again, this was during a time when the Arizona Diamondbacks weren't really expected to be very good and weren't really expected to spend money. That was the other thing, was the shock of this kind of contract. It was like a 6-year deal, I believe.
It was a 6-year deal for $206.5 million.
Wild.
It was
wild.
Yeah, it's safe to say far and away the biggest investment that this team had ever made in a free agent. The previous record, I believe, was Yasmani Tomas at the time. That deal didn't go so well.
Oh boy!
But that was $68 million, right around $68 million, and yeah, it was wild. I mean, it was the Diamondbacks spending 3 times more on a free agent than they'd ever spent in their entire franchise history. And I think in retrospect, it's really interesting to think about whether this was a good move for the franchise. I am of the belief that it was a good move for the franchise. Did Greinke's tenure end with the Diamondbacks getting another team to eat, or having to eat a good portion of his contract to move him to another team? It did, right? I mean, that deal with the Astros that they made in 2019, that involved the Diamondbacks eating some money, and it also involved them getting back some players that did not really pan out for this team, right? You look at the return of that trade. In retrospect, I mean, it was Seth Beer and Corbin Martin, JB Bukauskas, and Josh Rojas. Like, as of right now, the Diamondbacks, there just isn't really much there that's still on this team. There's basically nothing that's still on this team from that trade. So that trade didn't really go all that well. But the signing in the first place, like, would the 2017 Diamondbacks have gone to the playoffs and given us the memories that team did if they hadn't signed Zack Greinke and been so aggressive? I don't think so. And for that reason, I think that it was worth it for the Diamondbacks to make this move, even if it wasn't always perfect.
On the other end of the spectrum, we have a low-key signing, a guy that not a lot of people knew, guy not a lot of people were familiar with, but had connections to right here in Arizona, quite a few of them, and that was when the Diamondbacks signed Merrill Kelly, which also happened this week. It's the anniversary of signing Merrill Kelly, and I don't think those two deals couldn't have been more opposite, nor could I mean, again, like Jesse said, when it comes to Zack Greinke overall, it's hard to look at his numbers, look at his career with Arizona, and say that it was any kind of disappointment that they signed him, right? It definitely was a team that probably didn't have any business spending that kind of money on one single player, considering how they could have spent their money and maybe gotten a lot more, or gone in a completely different direction other than going out there and getting, you know what I mean, like one of the biggest names available on the market, right? But Merrill Kelly, he's a guy, again, you weren't expecting a ton out of, and you could not look at Merrill Kelly's career as an Arizona Diamondback and not say it hasn't been a huge success. He definitely has been a very good pitcher for this organization. And last year, at one point, not last year in 2024, last year in 2023, he was at times one of the Diamondbacks' best pitchers. I mean, he was even pitching better than Zach Gallen was.
One of the best moves that the franchise has made, not only the initial signing, but also the extension that they signed Merrill to prior to the 2022 season, I believe that was. That was huge, right? Without that extension, Merrill is not on this team now. And of course, we expect him to be a big part of this rotation in 2025. One of the biggest things about Merrill that blows my mind is that his career ERA in the KBO is actually higher than his career ERA in the majors. 3.88 ERA over 4 seasons pitching in Korea compared to a 3.82 career ERA in the majors. None of us, frankly, I don't even think the Diamondbacks were expecting Merrill Kelly to blossom the way that he has when they initially signed him out of Korea. They expected him to be a guy who could eat some innings, a guy who could hold his own at the back of a rotation and be a valuable member of a team. But this is a guy who struck out 9 in a dominant outing in the World Series, right? Like, Merrill Kelly very much carried the Diamondbacks from a pitching standpoint throughout that 2023 run, and he has been everything they could have hoped and more.
Not to mention, Merrill Kelly can see walk, and I don't know if there's a lot of pitchers you can say can confidently do that as well as Merrill Kelly can. So we love having Merrill Kelly. I'm very happy that the Diamondbacks are able to have a father and son tandem like that on a team with Geraldo Perdomo and Merrill Kelly. And again, I much like what people are saying, I hope that the Diamondbacks can go out there and re-sign him. It would be great to see them bring Merrill Kelly back. Just don't know. Honestly, again, this is something that Archie brought up last night, and this is something that was discussed. I believe someone asked Archie about, like, Christian Walker taking a discount to stay here in Arizona. I don't ever think poorly of these players for going out there and agreeing to these huge deals. And that's one thing I think we as fans should all remember. Although it sucks to lose a player to free agency, it sucks to see them go sign with some big team like the Yankees or some other team that has way more money than our Diamondbacks have. But I will say that, like, baseball is just one of those sports where people that deserve it sometimes never get that big payday. And again, like, we might see it as just a few more $1 million per year here or there, but for some baseball players who this might be it for them as far as, like, contracts, as far as their playing days are concerned. They got to do everything they can to get every dime. And it sounds really selfish. It sounds like, kind of a thing that you don't really want to hear when the Diamondbacks are a team that doesn't spend nearly the amount of money that other teams do, but it's very real. Like, these guys spend so much time connected to one team and not really making any kind of huge amount of money that, when that opportunity presents itself, especially after they've had a few good seasons or, especially an amazing one particular year, it's time for them to cash in. Baseball does need to change a lot of things, but again, when it comes to, like, someone like Merrill Kelly, I really do think that he deserves to go out there and get a big payday. I hope it comes from the Diamondbacks, but again, it's for him as a person. I think he definitely deserves it after the, kind of journeyman career that he's had up to this point.
That 2022 season was just so incredible from Merrill. Obviously, he'd looked really good in 2020, and then he had the thoracic outlet surgery.
Yeah.
Came back in 2021, was healthy, but he was just okay, right? It was an ERA in the mid fours, and then the Diamondbacks signed him to that extension before 2022. And from their standpoint, good thing they did, because Merrill Kelly went out and threw 200 in a third innings with a 3.37 ERA. Came back in 2023, had a similarly great season. Obviously, in 2024, he had the shoulder injury, which kept him out for significant time. But toward the end, he was starting to look like himself again, and that's sort of the pitcher that I'm expecting again going into 2025. I talked to a lot of people who root for this team, and they just love watching Merrill Kelly pitch, right? Yeah. He's one of those guys who goes deep into games, who doesn't throw an inordinate number of pitches, has a deep arsenal. It's not uncommon. We see Merrill Kelly use all 6 of his pitches in the first inning. He's just that guy, and he's found a way to evolve as the years have gone on and remain pretty effective. Even now, as he's 36 years old, you still expect big things from him moving forward.
Well, we have more Throwback Thursday chatter on the other side of this break, and we will talk about another guy who left this team on this day years ago. Don't you go anywhere. We'll be right back. Big shout out to Chicken and Pickle. Of course, Chicken and Pickle is where we will be having our winter pickleball tournament on December 14th out there in Glendale. But Chicken and Pickle is a place that you should not go just for our tournament. You should go anytime that you need to enjoy yourself at their indoor-outdoor entertainment complex. It has a casual chef-driven restaurant, sports bar, and like I've said, not only do you have the indoor and outdoor pickleball courts, which are kind of the main event there, but even if you don't play pickleball, it's a great open space for you to go have a great time with your friends, with your family, with your coworkers. And of course, you can also check out the game of pickleball. If you are new to it, you can try it out the first time. They have newbie nights where you can get in on the courts with some other newbies, figure out how to play the game, which is a lot of fun and really quick to learn. And then not only do you get instruction and facilitated play included, every participant receives a $10 Chicken and Pickle gift card. If you are interested in signing up for our PHNX Winter Chicken Ball, I did it again. Chicken Ball. We got to make Chicken Ball happen. Winter Pickleball Tournament. You can sign up for that at gophnx.com/events. But most importantly, head to chickenandpickle.com to see all the fun you can have at their Glendale location, and then pitch them my idea of Chicken Ball. I don't know what it's going to entail. I don't know.
This time was Chickleball.
Chickleball? Yeah. We're coming up with new sports on this show every single day. Also, Empire Today. There's nothing new about Empire Today. Empire Today is a classic. It has been around for years, and there's a good reason why. Empire Today offers you the best service that you can find. Shop at home convenience, the right product for your needs, quick and professional installation, and a price match guarantee. They also service their own warranties, so it's all in one. You don't have to track down a manufacturer's phone number or anything like that. If you have any type of problems, you got Empire Today. We'll work with you, and they got your back. They do offer quick and convenient service, which is something we all need. And again, it's a great time of the year here with 2025 right around the corner to spruce up your home. So check out Empire Today. Schedule a free in-home estimate right now. All listeners can receive a $350 discount when you use promo code PHNX. Restrictions apply. See empiretoday.com/PHNX for details. All right, Jesse. Well, let's just do it. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off.
6 years ago today, Derek.
6 years ago today was a terrible day. Oh God, that didn't happen 6 years ago today, did it? Maybe it did. I don't know. But it definitely was the trade of Paul Goldschmidt. I don't know when they went over and shook hands. There's an amazing image that exists on the internet somewhere that I can't find of a very sad Paul Goldschmidt sitting at the table. He looked as sad as Diamondbacks fans did losing him. And I know what some people are going to say. Not you, Derek. Not you. We heard what you said. And yeah, no, I can't live those accusations down. But I will say that this was a terrible day in Diamondbacks history, Jesse, mostly because this guy's a legend. This guy was our guy.
Are you sure you think that about him, Derek? Have you had a change of heart?
People think this guy is a legend, Jesse. People have said he deserves a statue. People have rumored that he might be the greatest player to have ever played for the Diamondbacks. I don't know. But I will say
Randy
that,
Johnson is probably the greatest player
Yeah,
that's
that's
ever
very
played for the
true, but-
Diamondbacks. But on the position player side, yeah, you could definitely make a case for Goldie.
I'm not going to say Randy Johnson isn't ours, but there's a lot of people that when they think of Randy Johnson, Shane will tell you what jersey they see him in, and it's not a Diamondbacks jersey.
Sure.
Right. But I mean, at the same time,
Are you talking about the Mariners?
I'm talking about the Mariners.
Are we talking
of
about?
course.
Do you want to talk? You want to rip?
I want to talk a little Mariner ball. Yeah. No, but I will say that, like, again, that's what Goldschmidt was for us. Like, Goldschmidt was a Diamondback. He was a Diamondback, and he was. I think even when you talk to other people across the league, he was like Mr. Diamondback. So I think it's very fitting that Mike Hazen said that is his biggest regret in his tenure as GM of this franchise. And it went on beyond just the production that they lost. I felt like what he said was more about like the impact it had on the clubhouse and the locker room. And I think it's just beyond losing Goldschmidt as a person. Again, we've said this, other people have said this, Archie said this. If you weren't going to give Paul Goldschmidt a big contract, if you weren't going to extend Paul Goldschmidt, who were you going to extend?
Right.
Nobody.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting to go back and see what Mike Hazen said about this deal when it first happened. His quote, "There are decisions that you want to do, and there are decisions that you feel like you have to do. I feel like this fell in the category of the latter," which, like no team wants to be trading away the face of its franchise, and that's ultimately what this amounted to. I will say at the time, I don't think the return for the Diamondbacks was viewed all that negatively. Looking at this story from the Arizona Republic that was published back on the day of the trade, and there's a number of scouts quoted in here from around the league who thought the Diamondbacks did pretty well. Of course, I don't know if people want to be reminded of this, but the return was right-handed pitcher Luke Weaver, catcher Carson Kelly, infield prospect Andrew Young, and a 2019 competitive balance round B draft pick, which ultimately turned into Dominic Fletcher for the Diamondbacks. So those are the players they got back, and frankly, I don't think any of them necessarily had the tenure with the Diamondbacks that people would have hoped.
Well, today is also another very, very legendary day for the Diamondbacks because it is the day that they acquired one Eric Chavez, Jesse.
It is.
And everybody knows when we talk about Diamondbacks legends, forget Paul Goldschmidt. We got Eric Chavez to talk about.
Yeah, I think
I just want to move on from Paul Goldschmidt talk as quickly as possible before Elise says any more things in the chat.
This was December of 2012 when the Diamondbacks signed Eric Chavez to, I think it was just a 1-year deal, and then they came back the next offseason and brought him back for another season.
I loved Eric Chavez.
Eric Chavez had a really impressive Major League
so
career, not a Hall of Famer, but a really impressive Major League career, and it ended with the Diamondbacks. He spent his last 2 Major League seasons in Arizona, and in 2013, he was, both of those years, he was pretty good. In 2013, he slashed 281, 332, 478. That's an 810 OPS, a 120 OPS plus. Eric Chavez, he only 80 games that season, 44 games the year after that. But when he was on the field, Chavez was pretty good toward the end of his career for Arizona.
RA is pointing out in the chat, what hat does RJ wear on his Hall of Fame plaque in Cooperstown? We know what hat it is, right? All right. Well, okay. He's a Diamondback. Sorry, Shane. He's not a Mariner. He's a Diamondback forever. He's ours. Honestly, where do you find him hanging out the most? Where do you see him just milling around like with nothing to do, just in a polo for the team? He's a Diamondback, and we love him for that. But there he is. There's our guy. He wants to drink every beer at Cold Beers and Cheeseburgers, and I just gave out a free ad before getting out of here. What's that?
Did I tell you that I definitely haven't told you this. I met Randy Johnson at a Chuck E. Cheese.
That's an insane place.
When I was a child.
And when you were a child, why? Why was he there? He was just there for like another kid's birthday party.
Kid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
His kid and I are about the same age.
Oh, yeah.
I guarded him in a summer basketball game once.
That's incredible.
Summer high school basketball.
Is his kid as tall as he is?
He was very tall.
He's very tall. He's very tall.
Yeah. I can't speak to his height now. I could imagine that he didn't shrink, so he's probably still pretty tall.
I still
Fair.
need to get my shirt people to make him a matching top and bottom from the Sandlot, like I was wearing the day he saw it, because he wanted one in his size. So that was my favorite interaction with Randy Johnson. We could do this for days, but it's Throwback Thursday. It's a good day to do it, but we're done now. So we'll see you tomorrow on another 1 p.m. show. Bye. No, but of course, you got to follow us. That's the last thing you got to do. I'm at Cap_Caveman with a K. Of course, Jesse is at Jesse N. Friedman. Our guy Shane is at Shane Deef. But of course, our show is at PHNX_Dbacks, and all roads do lead to at PHNX_sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We love you guys. We thank you guys for being here. Again, we'll see you tomorrow with another 1 p.m. show. We hope you have a wonderful evening. We hope you behave yourselves. And remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it's so much more fun when I don't acknowledge the things I've said about Paul Goldschmidt in the past.
We all silly like the mayor.